All right, so what we're going to go over in today's video is creating a buyer's broker agreement as well as writing your offer. So there's a few steps to both of these, but they're pretty simple once you get the hang of it. Now, I have all my tabs saved up on my Chrome. I use Google Chrome. You're welcome to use whatever, obviously. But I have a bunch of things saved like Stellar, MLS Advantage, Follow a Boss, Form Simplicity, etc. We're gonna imagine that you don't have this saved, so we're just gonna go to Stellar. You should know how to get here. And you're gonna log in. I'm already logged in, so I don't have to go through that page. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna go to Form Simplicity. Now, if you don't have it saved here, then you need to go to Stellar Products, and then it'll be under here somewhere. Maybe it's in the association. There it is, Form Simplicity. So we access Form Simplicity. We are going to create a new transaction. So your Form Simplicity is not going to have all these transactions here. So if you don't have this page, you just go to Transactions here up top, start a new transaction. And this one, the address is going to be buyer broker agreement. Practice for me, and for you, you should be practicing these. We'll set it as the same. The rest of this doesn't really matter. You're not going to have any form packages set up. You have to set those up yourself. I can show you how to do that, but for now, I'm not going to use that. I'm just going to create the transaction. And this creates one of those transactions. So this is my buyer broker agreement practice. You can see there's a lot going on with this. So if you've already watched the listing agreement video, you'll know this is a bunch of information about the property itself. And as we scroll down, we see forms. Now we're going to add a blank form. And we're just going to search buyer broker. There's about 10 billion forms in here, so if you go one by one, it might take you a minute to find it. So you can see there's a whole bunch of different buyer broker agreements. We are going to use the exclusive buyer broker agreement with consent to transition to a transaction broker. We're going to add that to the transaction, and now it's here. See that? So let's open that up by clicking on it. Some stuff's going to automatically populate, but this document is pretty simple. We have the parties, so it's going to be your client, Jumbo Slice, or whoever it is, and the brokerage. You can add your name in here if you really want. Doesn't really matter. And then the term is going to be the day today. It can be next week, whenever you're going to meet with them. I usually put today's date, and I do 6 to 9 months. Let's just say Halloween. So the part 2 is the term, when it starts and when it ends, and part 3 is what property. So you are able to write in a specific property. So if you meet a client or a potential buyer, I should say, let's say you don't want to bombard them with a whole big contract. You're showing them one house. It's your first time meeting them. You bring this and you just type that property address in here. So 123 Banana Street, Orlando, Florida, whatever, 32333. Doesn't really matter. So, oops, it's actually in the wrong line here. So the location and the type of property is residential. So if you wanted to do something very specific, you can do it that way. That's what I like to do if I'm just showing, if I've never met them before and I'm showing them just one property that day, you can put multiple properties in here. That way you're not coming off as pushy. Hey, If you decide to buy this specific house, this agreement is for this specific house. If you think we work well together and you want to look at other houses with me, we can sign one that's a blanket. But this is required. You do need to have it done. So if you want to do a blanket one, I like to do any type of property and location, Central Florida. So that really covers my ass if I'm looking anywhere. Any property in Central Florida. Where does Central Florida begin and end? And it's kind of it's kind of up in the air. But you could just do Florida, any property in Florida. So this goes over the broker obligations. What's our job? Professional knowledge and skills. Discuss property requirements. I'm not going to read this to you. You can take the time and actually read it. And it talks about their obligations as well. Their job, they need to be honest and upfront, give you necessary information, etc., etc. Again, I'm not reading this to you. Part 6, retainer. I don't work on retainers. If you're going to be somebody who works, like, let's say, with a high-end investor who does 10 deals a month, it probably is worthwhile, if you're going to be spending a lot of time working for deals, to get a retainer, like a lawyer. 99% of us, I would say, might even be more than that, aren't going to use a retainer. Compensation. So this is where you are getting paid. So purchase or exchange, I always put 3% on there. Or you can do something with a bonus. So let's say you are working new construction. So a perfect example. I got an email from D.R. Horton. They're offering 3% commission plus a 2% agent bonus. So you need to put on here 3% plus a 3% bonus or a 2% bonus. Hopefully it lets us. It does not. So that would actually need to go in additional fees, 2% commission bonus from D.R. Horton. Why is this important? So that you have it on paper. But either way, I do 3%. If for whatever reason, let's say, well, let me take a step back. So what this locks in when they sign this is they're agreeing to pay you 3% commission regardless of what the seller pays. If the seller is paying 0, then the buyer has to come up with 3 additional percent. So let's say you get to a house and the seller's not paying any commission. You have to go back to your buyer and let them know, hey, we signed this agreement. It's 3%, and that's just what it is. If you're buying a $400,000 house, that's an extra $12,000 they're gonna have to come up with, which I don't think it can be wrapped into a loan. So, what I typically will say is, I always do 3%. I'm always gonna ask the seller for 3%. If the seller is offering less, I'm usually just going to take what the seller is offering. So if he's offering 2%, I don't worry too much about it. Hey, 2% is fine. If it's less than 2%, I don't really want that. I want at least 2%. However, it's not set by law. You can do anything you want. Same with a lease. I don't do leases, but here's lease information. Same with an option right here, part C. Protection period. So if for whatever reason, let's say the buyer cancels on you, they say, hey Phil, thanks for showing me houses. I don't want to work with you anymore. My brother's an agent and I'm going to buy this house with him. You say, okay, that is what it is. However, if he cancels with you and he goes by the house that you showed him, primarily one that's listed up top, he will owe you your commission. So I do 180 days. If I show you a house and you buy it with somebody else within 6 months, we're gonna have a problem. You owe me commission. Your cancellation, I don't charge cancellation fees. Hey, if you decide we're not good working together, you don't like my style, whatever, I'm not gonna charge you for canceling on me. Dispute resolution, you should know this one pretty down pat by now. If you've read this thing, we go through mediation. If that doesn't work, then arbitration. If that doesn't work, then you go to court. Never been sued, try to keep it that way. Assignment, you can assign this to another broker. So let's say for whatever reason you get sick or something happens, you can have somebody take over and they can just step in. Single agent, this is your single agent notice. Here's your requirements that as a single agent, and then your consent to transition to transaction broker. In the off chance that you have a listing and they want to buy it from you and not use their own agent, you need to use this so that you can be the transaction broker. And here's all the requirements. Again, I'm not reading this to you. Any other terms you'd put here, and finally, any modifications have to be done by both parties. So, how do we get this signed? Let's go ahead and save it. I print, we save, and then we print the PDF. You're gonna have to learn this, how these things work. So I go to Florida Real Estate, because that's what I do. Training, practice, buyer brokerage agreement. Now with that, I have the copy saved. I go to Zone. From Zone, I'm going to go to SkySlope. And from SkySlope, I'm going to go to Digisign. It's kind of a roundabout way, but let's log into my Zone. Now we're going to go to SkySlope. If you didn't see that, SkySlope's right here on the left. And then through SkySlope, we'll go up to the app section up here in the top right. And we'll go to Digisign. So you're going to create a new envelope. There's no property. We're going to upload our documents. When you scroll down, you see upload document, click that. We're going to go to practice right where we saved it. In your case, it should be under your buyer's page. So we're going to go next. It's just going to be me. I'm not going to fool around with this. This is where you would add Jimbo Slice. Jimbo, I actually already have him in here. If he's new, you just hit new recipient, fill out his name, need the sign. We add Jimbo Slice. And then I do signing groups so that Jimbo signs first, I sign second. This is really important if you have like a couple who uses the same email. If you just send it to them without doing groups, it's not going to get done. I can just tell, it'll be confusing. So I hit next, always use your groups, and then we're just going to fill it in. So you have initials on page 1. Here's me. And then Jimbo Slice, he initials here where it says consumer. Now, I like making my life easy. What I'm going to do is I'm going to copy these. It's up here, copy. Now I'm going to scroll down and I'm going to paste. In this case, Control V. So if I look up here, I have some initials that I need to fill in right here under dispute resolution. So I'm going to drag mine in order, drag this one. I'm going to hit Control V again, V as in Victor, and it pastes another one. And then this one, we're going to have Jimbo sign, put his name and the date. Now I scroll down, we have more initials. So you can still paste, Control V, boom, look how easy that is. And look, we've got another signature. Sign, name, and the date. We scroll down, we have initials on the last page. Everybody tends to forget that one. And now again, we have the name, signature, and their full name. I don't ever fill this part out because it doesn't really matter where they're living right now. And then I'm going to put my initials. Let me delete that. Or sorry, my signature, I should say, under real estate associate, and the date. Now you also have to fill in this part, copy return to consumer on, put on the same date that you signed because you're signing second. And then you're going to hit email and double check that to make sure it's checked. So when you send this out, you can print it as it is right here. Well, if you printed it, you wouldn't have all these on here. But when you send it, you just hit send, and then I always adjust it. Buyer agreement. Launch and slice. I'm not going to send that out. So that's how you do your buyer brokerage agreement. Now, so you got your buyer brokerage agreement, you show some houses, you found one you love. Well, the buyer found one he or she loves. Now you need to write your first offer. So how do we do this? Well, first things first, let's pull up the listing in Stellar. So I went to my matrix. I don't know if you saw that. So I went to Stellar, and I have matrix up top on the left here. Now we're just going to use my listing in New Smyrna, 1956 Pioneer Trail. And you can see, here it is. We're going to pull it up. So you got to pull it up in Stellar. Now what you're going to do is, there's actually two ways of doing this. You can actually go to Form Simplicity from Stellar. And if you click that button, it's going to route you to your Form Simplicity. And it's going to automatically pull all this information for you. Now, Phil, this house isn't on Stellar. What do I do? Well, you go to Form Simplicity. So we're going to act as if it's not on Stellar. Or for whatever reason, you didn't do that. Let's just say you didn't watch this video, or you skipped ahead and you didn't know you could do that. So you're going to go back to Form Simplicity, and on your home page, you'll go to Transactions, and you'll start a new transaction. We'll do 1956 Pioneer, and practice. We'll make it the same. It's residential, and it's a purchase. We just went through this, so that's why I'm going fast. So we did the property type and the transaction type. And then we're going to hit create transaction. So now, before you do anything, we have a new transaction. You can go right here to this button, import property data. So if it's on the MLS, you can just put the MLS listing number on there. So how do I get it? Let's say you're looking on Zillow, 1956 Pioneer Trail on Zillow. We go to the public view. If you scroll down, you'll see the listing agent's information and you'll see the MLS number. We copy that and we paste it here. We import the property data. This is the right one. If it's wrong, don't select it. And here's all that same information. Let's say it's not on the MLS at all, it's for sale by owner. Let's just show you that. If I reset all my filters here and I do only owner posted, let's say this is the one for you. Well, it's not on the MLS, so there's not going to be an MLS number down here. So what you do is you take the address, and now you're going to go tax search, get the right county. In my case, that's Volusia. I'm only pasting it here so I can see it. 637 Ball Street. Let's find tax data. Hey, there it is. So if you wanted to write an offer on a for sale by owner, you just look it up by the tax data. So in this case, we're just gonna use my listing, like I said. We're gonna select that. And if you scroll down, you're gonna have save information transaction. Now, if there's a discrepancy between your transaction and the MLS, it will tell you. So we want to use, I don't like my middle initial in there because I don't sign with my middle initial. And this has a correct number. It just looks a little better. There's a few other things that I didn't go over with you, but anyways. So we have it, all the information in there. So now we need to get our offer together. So add blank forms. You should be familiar, this is the same place you get your buyer broker agreement. Add your blank form. Now we're gonna search again. And what you're looking for is the as is purchase contract. So as is residential contract for sale and purchase, Florida Realtors. There's some other crap in here that I don't know what it is, an as is writer. So I guess if you wanna make sure they understand it's as is, you put that on there. So, but this is the one we need, the as-is residential purchase contract. And just like before, we're going to open it up. And you'll see not everything got filled in. So your party, this is why it's important to pull it up as well in the MLS. Let's go back to the MLS. And let's see who that owner is. Instead of going to the purchase page, I'm actually going to pull it up on Realist. If you don't know what Realist is, this is your tax data. IMAP and public records will also give you tax records. Realist is the one I like. If you like the other ones, great, use it. So, when we look at Realist, on the top right it says search by address. 1956 Pioneer, and I hit enter. You can see here it is. Now double click. It opens up. You can see it's a 3-bed, 2-bath. Now the owner is NSB 1956 LLC. So we copy that, we go back here, and we paste it. Now sometimes that is in matrix. So if we look towards the bottom, it may have owner information. It would be on the left-hand side somewhere is typically where it's at. I didn't put out the owner information, so it's not on that one. That's why you can't always use the MLS. But Realist will always have the owner information. And you can see this is under a LLC or a corporation. So we put your buyer in there on the top. So we got Jimbo Slice as the buyer and NSB 1956 LLC as the seller. Now, let's make sure we got everything on here correctly. 1956, Pioneer Trail, New Smyrna Beach, Volusia County, tax ID. Here's the legal description. Sometimes it likes to run off the page and you can't see it, so always check to see if there's anything hidden by dragging, click and drag. So like everything, I'm not going to read this contract to you. It's on you to read it. If you have questions, I'm happy to explain it, but this is how you're going to fill it out. You make sure all this information is correct. If you don't have it linked, you're going to have to go to Realist and put all this information in yourself. You can see the subdivision, yada yada, all the stuff, and then the legal description. So it might be worthwhile to make sure that the legal description is the same per page 3457 per OR 6550, page 0543, and you see it actually cut off quite a bit of it. So what we're gonna do is we want the whole legal description on there, and there you have it. So now it was worthwhile looking, because guess what? When you put this in escrow, they're gonna kick it back and say, hey, this needs to be completed. So this is saying this is the property, this is the people, the parties, and now there's some personal property. If there's anything included that's not otherwise listed here. So you can see range, oven, fridge, dishwasher, disposal, ceiling fans, light fixtures, drapery rods, draperies, blinds, window treatment, smoke detectors, garage door openers, thermostat, blah, blah, blah. So this would be like washer and dryer. Electronic potato peeler, whatever it is, right? Whatever other personal property is included in the sale is there. Now, if there are some things included in the purchase price, but has no contributory value, what does that mean? That means it's not being considered as valuable. This might be like lawn equipment or pool equipment, stuff like that. How do you differentiate? Well, these are things that would be essentially fixtures or big items. These would be things that are really more in the line of personal property. So now that you know what it is that's being bought, who's buying and selling, now we go to the money, right? The money's the important part. So this one is listed at $399. So let's say you're making an offer at asking price. $399, 1, 2, 3. You don't have to. You could, let's say you want to do $385. Great. This is where you're going to put the purchase price. It doesn't matter the down payment in the purchase price. Part A is your initial deposit to be held in escrow. This is your earnest money deposit, your EMD, typically 1%. So let's do $399. Let's say we're going to do full price. Typically it's 1%. It's not always the case. Sometimes I've had a few where I just put $1,000 on there and they took it. In this case, we're going to go $39.90 or 1%. And this, you need to check this box, will be made within 3 business days. So you may say, hey Phil, it says right here, if neither box is checked, then option 2 shall be deemed selected. Don't be lazy, just check your boxes. It's really easy. This also protects you in the event that, say, somebody goes back and changes it. If there's already something in there, then they can't change it. And they say, hey, it actually says within 1 day, it's due tomorrow. Then you have to go back and look, and it's a mess. Just fill in your boxes. Don't be lazy. Your escrow agent has to be selected with the offer. So in Matrix, the escrow should be listed on here, which would be at the bottom. In this case, somebody, yours truly, does not have it listed. I happen to know who it is because somebody has some insider details on this property, but that's where it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be down here. If it's not, pick up your phone and text the listing agent, hey, who's the preferred escrow agent? So in this case, it is Fidelity National Title, New Smyrna Beach. Their address, here you have it. Yes, you can just pull it off Google. You're going to need the email of the escrow agent that's going to be working with you. Or you can just put it for the, I'm pretty sure in this one they just use this one. Yeah, they do. So we're going to put that in there. Their phone number, it's also there. Just copy and paste that. And there you have it. So that is who is hosting the escrow, or holding, I should say. Part B, additional deposit. So an additional deposit is, let's say after you get done with inspections, your buyer is agreeing to put an extra $5,000 into escrow for whatever reason. This can be helpful if you're dealing with investors. Let's say you're buying a distressed property and you're lowballing them because that's what you're supposed to do. You got to get it cheap in order to fix it up. So you say, okay, we're going to put $1,000 into escrow up front, and then once we get done in 15 days, we're going to put in another $25,000. That might be a little more enticing to the seller, right? Hey, they're putting $26,000 into escrow. That's a big deal. I've never done this, in my career. I haven't done an additional deposit. You know, that's a lie. Actually, my second deal I ever did in California, we did do an additional deposit described just like I told you. They did the initial, it was $4,000 because it was a $400,000 property. And then they deposited an additional, I want to say it was either $10,000 or $15,000 once they got done with inspections, which they then released to the seller. So he actually had $15,000 in cash before the transaction ever closed. However, the vast majority of the time, it's just left blank because there isn't one. Now, if you want to put something there, you can do NA, but in these cases, nobody's going to change this. So financing, this is the part of the loan. So if you're doing an FHA loan, and let's say they're doing the bare minimum 3.5% down, this is where you're going to put that 3.5%. Or sorry, you're going to take the 96.5% and you're going to put it here because that's the amount being financed. So you open up your calculator and you do 399 times 0.965. So that's 96.5% of 399, which is $385,035. Or you can do a percentage, 6.5%. and it automatically calculates it for you. I like having the dollar figure there so that my clients know and the seller knows how much is actually going to be there. So we take this, we copy it, and we paste it. Now, they already put their $1,000 in. That means what's due is $12,965. And if you add these three numbers together, you will get $399. So let's do that together. We already have the financed amount, so we're going to add $1,000 for our deposit. And we add the amount due, $12,965. And look at that, it all adds up. So part 3, time for acceptance of offer and counter offers effective date. So if not signed by buyer and seller and executed copy delivered to all parties before blank date, this offer shall be withdrawn. So unless otherwise stated, the time for acceptance of any counter offer shall be 2 days after the day the counter offer is delivered. So you need to put an expiration date on this. I typically give them 3 days. So 1, 2, 3. The second part is saying if they're going to send you, or if they send you a counter offer, let's say you give them this offer and they counter to, let's say they want 405. You have 2 days after receiving that counter offer to accept the client or give them a new counter offer. And then it's 2 days back and forth. The effective date is when the final signature is signed. So if you gave them the offer today, they signed on Thursday. Thursday is the start of the contract date. It doesn't start when you write the offer, it starts once it's accepted. If they send you a counter offer, it is when your buyers sign that counter. If you send them a counter offer, it's when they sign the counter. And back and forth, it's when everybody is signed. So closing date, when is this going to close? Typically, you're going to need 30 days. If it's cash, you could do 14, you could do 10, you might even be able to squeak out 7. More often than not, 25 to 30 days, that sweet spot. If you need longer, then put it in there, right? Very simple. So today's the 23rd. Let's say we're giving them till 26th. So we're going to count from the 26th. 7, 14, 21, 28, 29, 30. We can't close on a weekend, so we're going to do the 30th. If this falls on a holiday, then it'll be after that. So extension, both parties have to sign. Force majeure, I'm sure you've learned about this. If there's something that happens that is God's will or out of your hands, whatever the case is, we're gonna close after everything is fixed. Occupancy, so you can't change any of this stuff, but what you need to do is you need to read through this. I'm not gonna read everything to you, but we're gonna harp on a few things. So if there is a tenant or post occupancy, so let's say you're going to give the seller 2 weeks after closing to move out, you would check this box. And you're going to have to add that addendum. If not, don't check that box. Assignability, I always check, may not assign this contract. We don't do assumptions. We don't assign contracts. We're not wholesalers. We're not scammers. In the event that, let's say, they actually want to put it in an LLC, they would need to reassign it to the LLC. We could probably make an exception if that was the case, but that's not going to happen. We're just going to check may not assign. Financing, if it's cash, you would check here. If it's contingent on financing, then you are going to check that box. You know it's FHA, check that box. We're not going to check fixed or adjustable or fixed adjustable. We're not going to do any of this stuff. You need to read through this, but they need to make the application, they need to do their pre-approval, they need to do it in good faith. You need to read through all this. I'm not reading this to you. If there's any addendums for the assumption of an existing mortgage or a purchase money note on the mortgage, you need to check these boxes. Now, getting the closing costs. I typically tell my buyers to expect 2% of the purchase price in closing costs, and that's inclusive of all their mortgage fees. You're gonna have to prepay some taxes, your home insurance, stuff like that. So expect to see about 2%. So $8,000 in this case. The rest of the stuff is pretty cut and dry here. Buyer and seller costs are spelled out black and white, who's gonna pay for what. The seller pays all of these things, and the buyer pays these things. Buyer almost exclusively pays just their stuff for the mortgage and the purchase of the property, such as the appraisal or the inspections, any attorneys, etc. Now there's another part that goes with this, which really should be the next section, but it's not. So we'll actually get there in just a second. But part C, title evidence and insurance, at least 15 days before closing, we need to get evidence of title. Now, if you get the title and there's something wrong with it, that is a reason to cancel, right? So if you have 5 days for inspections, you get your inspections done, and then the title comes back, 2 weeks later, and there's all kinds of messed up stuff on this title, you have the right to cancel, and you're not going to lose your earnest money. But they need to show evidence, and it needs to be insured by the title company, which comes in the form of title commitment. You're going to get your title commitment pretty early. They are committing to insuring the title. That's what that means. And then at closing, they pay for title insurance. So part whatever this is, I guess still under C. We always check the seller when you're working with a buyer. Seller shall designate closing agent and pay for owner's policy and charges. If for whatever reason you have a title company you want to work with, you can check number 2. But whoever chooses the title agent pays for the owner policy and charges. That's why we want the seller to do it. Miami-Dade doesn't count, we're not in there. A survey. If you are using a loan or your buyer's using a loan, they need to have a survey done. It's usually one of the last things that are ordered by title. Home warranty. If you want the seller to pay for a home warranty, this is where you would check that. So, seller shall pay for a home warranty plan issued by buyer to choose at cost not to exceed $650. If it's a much bigger house or has a pool, you might want to do like $900. But this is the home warranty. Special assessments, we're just going to check A. The seller is going to be prorated. They're not going to pay any special assessments that come after they sell the house, unless they have agreed to do that. If it's a condo or something and they have this huge assessment coming up and they've already agreed, then you would check B. But part A is what you're going to check 99.9% of the time. So this next part is disclosures. That's why it says that in bold. I'm not going to read through these with you. These are the disclosures. You need to read them, and you need to be able to explain what these are to your buyer, because they're going to sign this with you. So you're going to have to go through, read, maybe learn a little bit about these things, but I'm not going to go through them all with you. Property maintenance, condition inspections, examinations. This is important. This first one. Except for ordinary wear and tear, casualty loss, seller shall maintain the property, including the lawn, shrubbery, and pool, in condition existing as of the effective date. So, what does that mean? That means the seller can't just destroy the place or stop caring about it. It means they have to keep it up. What that also means is if the fridge goes out during escrow, they have to replace it. Or if a switch stops working during escrow. If you do your inspections and something is working on day 2, and you come back on your final walkthrough on day 29, and all of a sudden there's a switch that doesn't work, or the oven won't turn on, or the heat's not working, this is what is saying they need to fix that. So that's important. Next is your inspection period. So the standard is 15 days. If you want a stronger offer, you can shorten that to 10 days or 7 days or 5 days, whatever the case is. But if you're going to shorten it and you think it's going to get accepted, you need to schedule your inspections ASAP, like literally as you get this done, because getting the inspections done, reports back, and doing any negotiating is going to be tough in 7 days. So this talks about all the stuff you can inspect for. Again, I'm not reading this to you. You need to read it. We're allowed to do inspections. We're allowed to do walkthroughs. The seller has to cooperate. Any building permits need to be closed. The escrow agent, this goes over their duties. This one's important. Professional advice, broker liability. You need to always tell your client, hey, I am a real estate agent. I don't do taxes. I'm not a home inspector. I am not a home decorator. I can't tell you any advice other than real estate. I'm going to make recommendations on inspectors and stuff like that, but I'll give my opinion. I can read a label on a water heater that says manufactured 2020, right? Does that mean that I'm an inspector and I said that water heater is good? No, that means I can read. So make sure your client understands that anything you say outside of real estate advice should be taken with a grain of salt, and that they should seek the advice of a professional. Cancellations, aka defaults. So if the buyer defaults within their time periods, so let's say you cancel because the inspections are horrible, the house is way worse than you thought, hey, no worries, no harm, no foul, they get their money back. You have to cancel because they don't qualify for that much on the loan, it doesn't work out, hey, no harm, no foul, you get your money back. However, we're outside those time limits. It's day 28 and the next door neighbor's house came up for sale and your buyer likes that one a little bit more. Hey, you got a better view of the mountain. Well, not mountain here, but you got a better view of maybe the beach. Maybe you get a nice view from like the top of a hill or something, and they want that property. The seller has the right to keep their earnest money deposit, and they can go for damages, which is down here. So if they did a bunch of work or they lost out on other sales, that's what dispute resolution is for. If the seller defaults, aka cancels, really the only thing you can do is try to use some scare tactics to get them to sell, get them to close. And by that, it'll be a letter from our lawyer or the broker. Teresa and Blake will step in, say something, they'll talk to the agent. We'll do if it comes to it, you'll have to do, like I said, a letter that says you're going to be sued if you don't close. If none of that works, you'll have to go to court, aka start with mediation, then arbitration, and then finally go to court. And that's true for anybody. If whoever loses pays the winner's attorney fees. So the standards for real estate transactions, this just kind of goes over some standards and definitions. Again, I am not reading this to you. if you're confused about what force majeure is, here it is. Closing location, documents and procedure. You're going to close at the escrow title company 9 times out of 10. That doesn't mean they have to. If they don't want to go, like let's say they choose some title office in Orlando and your clients are super busy, or I guess if you're in Orlando, let's say they choose a title office in Jacksonville, who knows? Way out of the way. They can send a mobile notary to get you to sign. It might take an extra day to get it closed, but you don't have to go all the way to Jacksonville or whatever the case is. I'm not going to read the rest of this to you. This is important for your buyers. Everything's going to be prorated to the day of closing. So taxes, HOA, water bill, electric bill, all that stuff is going to be prorated to the day of closing. 1031 exchange. If you know what a 1031 exchange is, it's when the seller, or in this case could be a buyer, is exchanging another property for this one, or if the seller is exchanging this property for another. If you don't know what that is, you need to read up on it. You can't record this contract. Read through this. If the seller is a foreigner, they will withhold some money for the IRS. Now, for the addendums. This is where you're going to add your addendums. So, as the buyer's agent, there's some pretty important ones, like number GG, I should say letter, seller agreement with respect to buyer's broker compensation. And there is another one. Where is it? Well, anyways, so go down these and let's read them together. So if it's in a condominium, this is where you would put the condo. If it's in a HOA, you get the HOA. Seller financing and mortgage assumption, you're probably not going to do any of these anytime soon. FHA financing, check that. Is it getting an appraisal? It is, check that. If it's a short sale, you would check that. If there's flood insurance addendum, interest-bearing account, effective drywall, coastal construction, insulation, these are separate addendums, but you're not going to include them. If there is a post-closing occupancy, such as, like I said earlier, if you're going to let the seller stay, this is where you would check that. If you are selling a property to buy this one, you need that addendum. If you're going to be a backup offer, you need that addendum. If you're doing the sale of buyer property, the seller's probably going to want a kick out clause, so in case they get a better offer, they can tell you to get out. But never add that into your offer. Make the sellers ask for it, because a lot of times the listing agent might not even know. If we need attorney approval, there you have it. If you're buying it for yourself or like let's say your wife or something like that, you would check that one. The rest of this, I don't think I've ever used. So you need to make note of these because you're gonna need them. So I use my sticky note. You can see a lot of information on here. So addendums, B, E, F, V, and GG. Additional terms, this would be things such as seller to paint living room, yellow, seller to repair fireplace prior to closing. This is where you put any other terms you might have in there. If the seller counters you, this is where they're gonna check. There's some more notices. You need to read through that, understand it. This is where the signature goes. And look, there's your information. So we got the offer done. This 13 pages. So save it. Great, it's been saved. Now you close. But hey, Phil, you didn't print it. Yeah, I know. We got some more addendums we need to add. So what did we have? We had addendum B. The appraisal addendum. We had FHA. Now let's just go off the letters. E. Which one was E? Let's go back and look. See, this is why it's important to write these things down. So if we go back all the way down to our addendums. So we got the homeowner association. So let's actually write these down. We got HOA, FHA, VA, appraisal, sale of buyer's property, and the GG. The GG is easy. So we close this out. Add blank forms. FHA, VA. It's CR7. We're going to actually use a different appraisal addendum. It's actually this one. So you should see the CR7. This one needs to be deleted. Add blank forms, sale of buyer's property. And finally, GG. So all these addendums, you need to go in there. So the first one, FHA, VA, this one's pretty simple, clean cut. This is essentially notifying the seller that yes, this is an FHA loan. Here's the definitions of what that means. There needs to be an appraisal. There may be repairs required from that appraisal. If you leave it blank, the seller's not agreeing to any amount, which means there's really no limit. If you are a listing agent, you should probably put in a limit in here, like $750. But for a buyer, we're not going to check that. So it's FHA. So as you can see, part 3, check if FHA financing. If it was VA, you would check this one, number 4. This first part is saying that it needs to appraise. So we're going to say it needs to appraise at the offer price. If you leave these blank, this is any extra charges the seller may pay up to a maximum of $100. The appraisal repairs, if there's things called out by the FHA appraiser, the seller is agreeing to repair them. And as we go down to part 5, this is saying, hey, you understand it's FHA or VA, and you're electing to agree anyways. If it's VA, it's pretty much the same thing. You can read through this. I'm not going to read it for you. So we got that in there, the price. We check the right box. We save. We actually should print these out. So let's print them. Save as PDF. practice VA or FHA addendum. That has been saved. We go to the appraisal. Now, the FHA addendum and the appraisal addendum, you don't need both, but I still like to do it. Oops, wrong one. We're gonna leave this one blank because it says at least 10 days prior to closing, and we put the right amount in the right box. Again, I'm not gonna read this to you. This is your appraisal. It says it needs to be done in a certain time, and it needs to appraise at a certain price. So we're gonna save, we're gonna print. We'll save as PDF. Practice appraisal addendum. Now we're going to do sale of buyer's property. This one's a little more complex. So this one you need to put, this is contingent on the sale of buyer's property at 123 Banana Street in Oklahoma City, Kansas, whatever. So you need to read this. Upon entering into a contract for sale of buyer's property, buyer shall give seller a copy of such contract with the third party's identification and purchase price information obliterated. So this is saying once you get into a contract, you need to give the seller a copy of that contract. You don't have to disclose how much money is getting sold for. If the sale does not close by, so this is your expiration date of this. So if that house is going on the market tomorrow, or it's already been on the market, or even if it's under contract, let's say it's closing the 12th, you would put that there. The property is currently under contract for sale. So read through this. This is your sale of buyer's property. So we're going to save, and we're going to print this. And this is a practice sale of buyer's property. All right, finally, we got GG, seller's agreement with respect to buyer broker compensation. This is notifying the buyer that the seller is going to be paying commission, or more appropriately, that the contract is contingent upon the seller. We always check the second box. The seller and the buyer's broker executing a compensation agreement with the terms acceptable to buyer within 3 days. If you check the first one, that means the seller broker is going to pay you out of their commission. Just depends on how they wrote the listing agreement. So if the sellers wants the buyer, if the seller wants the seller's broker to pay the buyer broker, there's a box they check on the listing agreement, and 6% goes to the seller's agent, or however much they agreed upon, and then the seller's agent splits their commission with us. It's complicated. That's why we usually just do seller and buyer's broker. And we save that. GG. So we have all the disclosures. Did we save the contract as well? Let's take a look, because I don't remember. We did not. So let's go ahead and save that. All right, so we wrote the offer, we found all the information. Now we need to send it for signatures. We've already gone through Digisign, so I'm not going to show you how to do that again. On the offer, you need to double check everywhere it says buyer initial. You need to put an initial there, buyer initial here. Every page is initialed. So I'm not going to go through it with Digisign because you already know how to use Digisign. And then at the end, it needs to be signed. Right here, buyer and date. Same with all these other ones. They need to be initialed or signed accordingly. So once you have all that done, how do we submit this offer? Well, we go in the matrix. And sometimes your listing agent will tell you send all offers to whoever at gmail.com or whatever the case is. If not, you go ahead and send it to their email, which I realize I have my wrong email on here. So let's go into Gmail or whatever you use. Get me to the right email here. I'm going to compose. This is going to go to me. And now, here's the important part. You need a template. I will share you my template. So when I go, I always go to my past, my most recent one, and I copy the template. Some people are smart, and you may even have a Google Doc that has your templates ready for you, which I also have that. So you take your template and you make sure you fill out all the information correct. Now what I always do is I do offer and then the address. And then you got to customize it. Hi Phil, thank you so much for the opportunity to present my client. See, I screwed that up. I just copy and paste it. My client's offer. Oh no, I didn't. My client, Jimbo Slice's offer. We looked at many houses, and this is the first one that checked every one of his boxes. He is highly qualified, ready to make this purchase. I've CC'd his lender, whoever it is, make sure you CC them. Michael and I have discussed the property in detail. He has included the required conditions, etc., etc. So you need to tailor this to whatever property it is. And he has run the scenarios and ensured the buyer is highly qualified. I have CC'd him. I might have said that at the bottom here. I've not. Oh, I said that up here. I CC'd his lender. So here are the highlights. This is where you make it easy for the listing agent to accept your offer, so that if they're a lazy person and they don't want to actually look through the offer, hey, here's all the highlights. So $399, $900 purchase price, full price. Here's our EMD, $3,990. 7-day inspection period, 30-day loan period. And I put what type of loan. Closing on whatever the date was, March 25th. Offer is contingent on selling property. Now, that's the highlights. What's the price? What's the EMD? What's the inspection period? It has a loan. Now what I've included as is purchase, the appraisal contingency, FHA, addendum, pre-approval, compensation agreement, which is a separate agreement between you and the seller. And then that'll be it. If there's any addendums, or let's say the seller uploaded disclosures, you could have them sign the disclosures and add that here too. Sign disclosures. GG. Sale of buyer's property. Feel free to ask me any questions. We go and we attach all these things. I like to add the offer first, so that's the first thing that populates. And then I'll go in and add everything else because the rest doesn't really matter. The title company will ask for a copy of the buyer broker agreement, but we're not going to do that at this point. Not crap. Just did that one. Make sure these are all loaded in. You would add the pre-approval. Now finally, the compensation agreement. Seller or seller's broker to buyer's broker. Now this is one we didn't look at. We're going to add this as well. This is saying that the seller is going to pay the buyer broker. So in this case, check one, the seller is going to pay us. The property is listed by broker because it is listed. If it was like a for sale by owner, you would check this box. Now the term agreement will remain in effect for 15 days afterwards. In no event shall the term extend past the termination date, including any extensions. So with this, I always put 60 days. It will automatically extend through the date of actual closing of the purchase agreement, but I still like to just put 60 days. So here's your compensation. If you're doing a flat fee, you would do it here. Let's say 3%. If there's a bonus, $3,000. It doesn't really matter what the bonus is, but if there is one there, or if there's another one, 3% commission, like in that new construction I talked about. 3% commission plus 2% agent bonus. So that would go there. But we're going to check that. Dispute resolution, same thing, mediation, arbitration. If the seller's broker is compensating the buyer's broker, this is where you guys would initial. Compensation is not set by law. I'm not going to read this to you. The seller's broker or the seller would sign here, and then you would sign here. And then you have to initial all these pages. Now this one, I send separately through Digisign to myself because the buyer doesn't need to read through this. They are not signing it, so I just do it separate. And you would attach it here. So with all this, you hit send. You should probably have somebody look over it first, like myself or Blake or anybody else. Make sure everything makes sense. Double check your offer. Your first one you do, you need to make sure you go through all these things. Make sure they're correct. Make sure you have the right one attached. Make sure it's signed in all the right places. Send it to me first. I'll review it as well. I'll take a look. Oh, hey, you missed an initial here, whatever the case is. If it's good, it's good. If not, then we'll fix it. And then once you're all done, boom, sent it off. So that looks like to me, oh, hell yeah, we got an offer, 1956. Let's take a look. Man, who is this organized person sending me all this? Wow, this person knows what they're doing. Now all of a sudden you don't look like a new agent who doesn't know anything. Now you look like somebody who is detailed and actually cares, and that's what's important. So that is what it takes to do a buyer's brokerage agreement and write an offer. There's going to be different situations for all types of things. Now, if you want to go above and beyond, you should go through all these different addendums and read them. You need to read these so that when you sit down with your buyer to go over it, they don't ask you questions that you don't have the answers to. If they say, why do we have to go through this? Why do we have to do this? What does this mean? You need to know. So that's what I got for you guys today. Hopefully this is of value. So get out there and let's get some offers out.